So, a bit of background to Boddisford Net Zero. Basically, we're a group of villagers who are starting on this journey together to consider how we can best address the future for our needs, for domestic, business, agricultural and public use, because we've also got buildings like the church, the school and the library that all have an input into this. I suppose to sum up what it's all about is doing more with less, greening and re-engaging with the way we use our energy. We need village buy-in, and so on the chat section I've put the email page for getting in touch with us. If you're interested, please join in. First steps, see that email, join in, have your say, and let's influence our future for how we want it. I'm going to hand over now to Colette McHugh-Putnam, who's project manager for the Energy Innovation and Collaboration team at Nottingham University. Colette.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. Apologies. I think, can everybody hear me now? Can you hear me, Herbert?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for that, Herbert. Welcome, everybody. I'm, as Herbert said, I'm Colette Putman from the Energy Innovation Collaboration team at the University of Nottingham. And I'm just going to give you a really very quick high-level overview, just really about the timescales and the funding available. The project, it's an EU-funded project funded by the European Regional Development Fund. We've just really kicked off this first quarter. Officially, the project started on the 1st of January this year, and will be running up until the 30th of June 2023. So a good sort of run-in to get some activity and projects delivered across the Leicester and Leicestershire region. We currently deliver across the D2N2 Derby, Derbyshire, Nottingham, Nottinghamshire, LEP region, and have been for the past 4 years. But it became apparent we were, I guess, constantly in dialogue with businesses from the Leicester and Leicestershire region as well, and wanted to sort of support that region and help deliver low carbon benefits to businesses within Leicester and Leicestershire. So that's the reason we put in a bid going back, where were we, 2019, I think, to the government to secure further funding to deliver the project in the region. And thankfully it has been successful. So this first quarter, the first few months, will be sort of doing lots of background activity, and just getting the message out there that the project is live and delivering. We're going through a recruitment phase at the moment as well. So Tim is going to, my colleague Tim Saunders will give a full overview of the programme and the project just after myself. But the main idea of the project is to work with, as Herbert says, work with you guys, work with businesses, work with the community, and sort of trying to reduce our carbon footprint and to benefit the local economy and at the same time. We offer a range of different elements within the programme, and I don't want to say too much about that, but we have placement opportunities with the university. We have excellent world-class facilities at the university as well, so Tim can go through all of that. I don't think there's anything else to say really at the moment, just to say yeah, we'll look forward to, obviously our contact details will be shared. Tim will have them on the slides as well, so please do get in touch, and I hope you enjoyed the session. So I'll pass over to Tim. Thank you.
Thanks, Colette. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Yeah, good. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do is give Colette said, a run through of the offer that we've got to business, and it's quite varied. So hopefully there's something there for everyone. Yeah. So what's the Energy for Business program about? So it's really here to help businesses engage with the university in a variety of ways. So it's forged links really between the academic ability of staff and students, and also our facilities, and help people to access also graduate talent, but be able to integrate with research, and to really make use of that for whatever it is in their business that they can do. It's a low carbon program, essentially focused around business energy efficiency and energy innovation. But that's a very broad definition. And what we're trying to do is help people move along something within their business. So it could be about developing a new product or service. One of the key things is also to improve sustainability by reducing energy bills and CO2 emissions, and obviously essentially also at the same time reducing costs. That's an important driver for lots of people. In addition to that, it's also about helping to accelerate research and development and help people, move a product along, commercialize it potentially. We also have a little bit of funding available, and we can work with people to work on funding bids and stuff like that. So there's a lot that we can do potentially. In terms of what sort of expertise have we got, we have captured all this in quite a large document, which we call the Energy Capability Statement, and there's actually a hyperlink here, and we'll put that link in the stuff at the end as well. And within that, we've captured sort of the expertise of over 150 kind of people, and we've kind of broken that down into about 8 areas essentially. So buildings and energy efficiency, architecture is a strong department within the university. And energy efficient buildings is their kind of speciality really. The buildings themselves, and also the technologies that go in them to make them work. We've got development of renewable energy technologies, projects looking at smart grids, integrating battery storage at different scales within a couple of project sites in Nottingham. Trent Basin's one that some of you may have heard of. Also a site in the Meadows, so there's been some interesting projects on that side of things recently. We've got work on materials, energy storage, and then also we've got a couple of programs looking at decarbonisation of carbon capture and storage, and then also work around looking at how society, how do people use energy, what's the best way of dealing with energy reduction in the workplace, energy monitoring, policy level stuff. So there's really kind of quite a diverse range of activities going on, and the capability statement is where you can find a lot more detail about what the expertise is, but come and talk to us. That's what we do. We're there to help navigate through that maze of information and find the right person. We can also deliver stuff directly from the team as well, so we've got a couple of routes there. In terms of what we've got to offer, so this is where there's quite a range of different things. So we've got quite a lot of facilities at the university, and there's a few more slides around those in a minute. But lots of bits of small equipment that could potentially be utilised in projects, and also some larger stuff. We can offer a kind of one-to-one process with academics. So if you've got a particular area of expertise that you want to tap into, we can arrange a meeting with an expert in that field, and facilitate hopefully a way forward, whatever that may be, and that could be potentially working towards a funding bid, or it could just be a small piece of work undertaken by the academic or someone in their staff. We run a number of events and workshops. Obviously, this is kind of an introductory event, but we also do some longer events. So over the last few years, we've done different numbers of different things. We have a series of evening lectures, which are kind of academics visiting the university who we get to come and speak on their particular topic, often looking at things like energy systems, what they're going to be in the future, how's the UK going to do stuff in the future, how to get to net zero, all that sort of stuff. And then more practical focused events around technology, such as looking at PV and battery storage, heat pumps, that sort of thing. So they're kind of a deep dive for a couple of hours on that sort of activity. We have a student placement program as part of our offer. So the university does a number of placement and graduate schemes, but we have a thing called a postgraduate placement. And it's a 200-hour project, and there's quite a few case studies of those coming up. Those are, paid for as part of the project. So there's no cost to the business. The student gets paid. The company sets the brief essentially, and you look to bring in a student who's got some expertise that perhaps you don't have to help you move something along. Generally very successful, good way of doing things, and popular with businesses. In a similar vein, but not exactly the same, we can also potentially use student masters projects to do some types of work that and we've done these around quite a few, looking at kind of feasibility for renewable energy, or some electronics development projects with people through that. So that's again another route, some set timelines to that. So just about still time to get into one or two of those at the moment. And then they deliver those mostly over the summer and through till the end of September. So they're sort of a little bit fixed, but there is just a bit of a window at the moment. We run a grant scheme, which can be for either energy improvements or for energy innovation. So it's a 40% capital grant, and we do a round every 3 months, and the next deadline is on the 26th of February. And it's for projects up with a capital cost of up to £20,000 excluding VAT. So grant can be up to £8,000. Obviously, we're looking at carbon savings, new products, but also innovation in there as well. We like to see, a little bit of additionality, a bit of risk being taken by our organisation to get something interesting happening. So very happy to talk to people about that or answer questions later. We can work with our academics and our knowledge transfer specialists within the university to set up knowledge transfer partnerships. These are, if you don't know about them, they are a kind of process whereby a person is employed to act as a sort of transferring knowledge person from an academic to a company over typically 2 or 3 year period. You have to make a bid to Knowledge Transfer Network to get funding for this process, often used in science and engineering particularly. And if your idea is good, it's generally a technical transfer. There are some productivity type work ones as well. And this process, the idea is it obviously can transfer a lot of knowledge, but it also allows access to facilities as part of the bid process. So the company pays essentially for the salary of the person, but getting the additional expertise and facilities usage as well. So it can be very, very useful way of of transferring information and expertise, but also access to stuff. We're quite successful at these at Nottingham, so very happy to talk to people about those. And then again, I mentioned about potential for working on people with on funding bids, which we've done over the last few years. So just a quick brief on a few of the specific energy facilities. There's lots of general engineering and science facilities potentially that could be utilised as part of our project. But these are some of the particularly energy focused things. So we've got the Energy Technology Building, which is built in about, I can't think exactly, but probably about 2011, 12, something like that. It's pretty outstanding. It's on the Jubilee campus. If you've not been to it, it's the old John Player and sort of Rally Bike Triumph Road, those factory areas of Nottingham. And it's got, particularly of interest, it's got electrical lab, FlexElect lab, which can replicate different grid system locations and do testing on battery storage, PV cells, all sorts of things like that. It can simulate different kind of environments, marine, etc. We've got a climate chamber in that building as well, which is quite large. So it's about, you could, physically, you could probably put like a transit van in it. It's quite a big thing, and you can utilize that to simulate -20 to +60 and up to 90% humidity. So pretty useful for testing materials and things like that. And we've done that for a few people. We're in the Rad Building, so this is the latest building. So on energy. It's also home to our Centre for Doctoral Training on Sustainable Hydrogen, and there's a hydrogen lab in there. We've got a carbon capture and demonstrator lab. We've also got high performance compression expansion facilities there. So looking at sort of surfaces and materials interactions. There's also some other multidisciplinary labs as well. So that's an interesting building. We've got creative energy homes, which have been around for quite a long time now, so people have heard of these. The latest thing there is there's a sort of heat network, a low temperature heat network between all the buildings, and some research around how to make that most efficient. But there's lots of examples there, 7 buildings on the architectural department. We've got the Trent Basin site, which has been developed by Blueprint, which is where there's a large battery storage unit there, and the work there has been around developing business models as well as the technical side. But it's about the business, how to make the business model work to make best value for the community for energy usage. So those are sort of some of the demonstrators. So I'm just going to give a run through of a number of short case studies because to give you a bit more of a flavour of sort of how it's worked with businesses. They're in no particular order, other than I've tried to give a range of different types. So this is one I did early on. So Westfield, based up in Derbyshire, but they're an insulation contractor. They do a lot of external wall insulation for social housing, but also for private residences. And they were interested in a targeting tool, basically trying to take public data sets and come up with a model to work out, okay, where do we need to work next? Which local authority areas have got poor stock? Who do we need to talk to? Which areas can we target for private housing? That sort of thing. So Victor was an MSc student in, I think it's a Sustainable Building Technology course. So this is via a placement. So and he set up. It's a complex Excel tool, but it's pretty good. You can basically download development data sets that are publicly available, and then use the additional information he's got in this tool to sort of do some targeting. So that's quite a nice little product that was developed there. So a bit of electronics and sort of physics work. It was Build Test Solutions who have done. There's been a lot of work with them developing an innovative air pressure testing tool for buildings called Pulse, which is different to the sort of fans approach. But they also wanted a small product that people could use when they're building buildings on site. Like a site manager could have this, and they could utilize it to just do some quick checking of air tightness of a building whilst in construction. And it links to a phone app and stuff like that. So they've now got that to market, which is great. So the student did the initial development work on that. That's an interesting project. Another one, bit of software development. So Core Taper, specialist installation contractor, do lots of one-off things with lots of different special high temperature insulation, things like that. And again, it's a bit of software to help calculate energy savings and sort of help as part of their kind of quoting process to make sure they get everything correct in that respect. So another electronics one, Hogton Housing Project kind of demonstrator in Nottingham near Southall, and they've been looking at developing this kind of simple, low-cost hot water heating system using actually PV panels, so solar electric panels, and trying to make that as cheap as possible because PV panels have got so cheap. It's a good way to actually heat water now potentially. And that product has started off as a placement. There was another master's project on it as well, so it's developed along the line. And again, it's moved forward quite significantly since the beginning, and probably could be taken to market in a year or two. So another technical project, myself and my colleague Guljan went to Hodgkinson Jones. They're a plaster moulding manufacturer. They have a drying oven, and they wanted to just get a good handle on how it was actually operating. What temperature was it really achieving, and could there be any savings in operation? So we put some logging material, temperature and humidity sensors and stuff like that in place. Did some logging over a period of time. And then looked at wrote up some potential improvements for them, savings they could make by things like there was some insulation missing, but also improving the doors and things like that. So on it, that's an interesting project as well. some stuff that pretty much anyone get involved with. So Guildbrook laundry laundry business specialist in sort of particularly in food and electronics, that sort of thing. So they collect and deliver, you know, clean laundry for clothing for people, and they do mats and all that sort of stuff. And just a PV installation to the roof. So they'd already done quite a lot of work. We've got rainwater harvesting, all sorts of other things. So again, we did feasibility work for them, just looking at that, and they were able to obtain a grant from another project after that as well. So worked well for them, and yeah, it's been in for a few years, working great for them. And the last one is Totally Brewed. So they're one of many craft breweries. We've done quite a lot of work with craft breweries in the D2N2 area, which is obviously where all these case studies are from. And they set up in 2014, and they've got some quite good award-winning beers. Which, they've done some work with the food, water and waste research group, looking at cloud-based sensor technology. And then we did some other work with them on just looking at some improvement around their process, how it could be made more efficient, insulation in the right places and on the vessels and stuff like that. So that is, yeah, just a kind of quick run through of some of the projects. I hope it gives you a bit of a flavour of some things. Haven't really included any grants in there. There's quite a diverse range of those as well. And we've got lots of case studies on the website. But I think what we'll do is, if we can, I don't know if anyone's posted any questions. I shall have a look in a second. But if you've got questions, you can either put them in the chat or you can raise your hand, and we will we'll try and answer those. Is that okay? So. Right. Okay, I think we've got a couple of hands up I can see. So Herbert, I can see your hand up, and then Pauline after that, I think.
No, I'll pass and go to Pauline.
Okay, yeah. So Pauline, if you've got a question, you should be able to unmute, I think, now. You should be able to unmute yourselves if you're asking a question, I think. Michelle, are you able to unmute people?
I think Pauline should be able to unmute herself if she wants to ask a question.
Okay.
Tim, there's a question there. Questions just come in the chat. If you want to look at that from David.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll take that. So, okay, so. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, I've seen that question. So I think Herbert also posted this to me in advance of the meeting, and yeah, it's a tricky question, and one that we will try and get an answer to in terms of which carbon footprint calculator is the best for ease of use and reliability and performance. Yeah, I guess it depends exactly what you're trying to look at as well. So, you know, individual business versus a village versus a school versus, you know, there are different ones focused on different sectors. Yeah, and I am trying to find an answer to that, but it's not something I want to give a definitive answer on just now. Rather than, you know, don't want to send you down the wrong path. So we have done a little bit of work with a few businesses looking at carbon footprinting, and it's quite tricky, but we do have a few experts in certain areas within the university who can do, you know, but it does depend exactly what area. So we've got people on sort of things like concrete and roads, and we also have people with particularly looking kind of waste streams and how to make best effective sort of use of waste. Yeah, okay, so that was that question. I think Ian has a question. He's putting his hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me, Tim?
Yes.
Yeah. Just looking at the development of a fuel cell. AFC Energy seem to be one of the front leaders on the fuel cell, and you know, I've noticed that the shares have shot up very rapidly quickly. How have you got any news on how the development of the fuel cells coming on? Basic storage of energy, isn't it, what we're looking at?
Yeah, I can see that my colleague Guljan, who is our hydrogen expert, is on the call, so I'm hoping she might be able to come in and talk about fuel cells.
Right, really.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Guljan. I'm working as a technical officer for the Energy Innovation and Collaboration team. Yes, a very good question, Ian. So fuel cell systems has been already developed really well, but we're still doing a lot of research at the university to reduce its cost and looking into overall optimization of different system integrated with the fuel cell. So I don't know how much you're familiar with a fuel cell, but there are different types of fuel cells. There is one called PEM electrolyte fuel cell, which is the one used for transport applications. And then there is solid oxide fuel cell, which is high temperature version of it, is often used for stationary applications. So going back to your question, there are, you may already know that there are commercial products, advanced products available out there, but we are also looking into integration of different systems, hydrogen generation integrated to fuel cell, and then fuel cell hydrogen generation integrated to renewable energy sources, and then as used through fuel cell for your site applications. So there are many companies can benefit from fuel cells. Of course, depends on your requirement. But just to give you one example, data centers can benefit from fuel cells as a backup power, or remote applications. And yeah, of course, like manual handling equipment, fuel cell cars. So there are so many applications out there. But is there anything particularly you want me to talk about?
Well, the fuel, as you talk fuel cells, the problem, as I see it at the moment, with there's a lot of solar panels being installed, and there's lots of turbines going on, and they're producing energy when the sun's out in the middle of the day, and then it's blowing a wind. But okay, but most people go to work in the daytime, and in a domestic situation, the energy is not being used. So one idea I'd sort of got in mind, and they're being taken out now, is going back to a few years in the 60s and 70s, the electric storage heater was a product which have been people sort of taking them out. A lot of authorities take them out. Now, to me, that seems a little bit wrong. If some work could be done on having the old storage heater, where it's taking the heat in the daytime, and the technology of the heater now, they can sort of store the heat without actually losing a lot of heat, and then let the heat out when in the evenings when the heat's needed. So I'm just wondering if there's any development on that as a dead simple fuel storage cell, which could be then charged up in the daytime or when there's wind, but then would hold the heat and in a domestic situation to then give off the heat again as it was. Because at the moment, I'm an electrical contractor, and we're taking a lot of storage heaters out, and I can put in direct panel heating in where they're using on-peak energy, which is an expensive energy. But I just think if these fuel cell, if the solar panels was basically put into a fuel cell, and the most simplest form as I see it is the old storage heater where you heat the bricks in, the bricks are insulated, the heat can't escape, and then at night time, then they can have a fan on to actually take the heat out. And I just wondering if there's any development on that one, what you're aware of at the moment.
Yeah, you are referring to thermal energy storage, heat storage, and that is definitely a valid application. And we do have research at the university looking into using some materials, how to efficiently store heat. But in terms of electricity storage, as you mentioned, fuel cells and batteries are two options. For the fuel cell, so when you have an excess electricity generated from the renewables, and you use that, you can use that to generate hydrogen. So hydrogen can be generated by splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen using a technique called water electrolysis. It works on electricity. So if you're using the excess renewable and you generate your hydrogen, you need to have some sort of hydrogen storage, and then you store the gas, hydrogen storage safely, and then you can use the fuel cell system to use that hydrogen to generate electricity when needed.
And
yes.
Been done on a local domestic property, or is it been done on commercial properties? Is this what's the development? Are they doing it for looking at domestic houses or factories?
Well, they can be both done, but I think it's probably economically more viable for a domestic larger scale. Yeah, because fuel cells are still expensive. Compared to other options. With the research and with all the developments and increase the scale of production, the cost is going down, which is great, but still it's more valid economically for larger scale, especially commercial applications, as you mentioned. But it's definitely possible. It could be wind energy, it could be solar energy, and renewable sources excess can be used to generate hydrogen. And the advantage of hydrogen over the batteries is that you can store it for a longer term. So for example, if you have a battery storage, you can store it for a couple of days, few days, but you're losing every day. If you want to store for a long term, let's say seasonal storage, for example, it's just, for a large scale applications especially. But hydrogen, you can indefinitely store it and use it whenever you want. And fuel cell efficiency is, sorry.
Been put into commercial use yet? Is anybody using it, hydrogen storage?
Oh, I'm sure there are some applications. I can find some examples. But we did, it's a part of the research studies at university as well. We did look at the overall system optimization for having renewables, and then you have storage, and then you have fuel cell, and then you're using electricity from fuel cell. You need to, of course, have appropriate power electronics system, because you are generating DC from, let's say, solar energy, and then you need to convert it in a DC converter to what is the electrolyzer like, and then you generate hydrogen, and then you generate electricity from fuel cell, and then you use DC to AC converted power electronics to use it in the grid applications. So there is it's important to manage the system in a advanced control system to make the most of it. But there are examples out there. There are lots of demonstration projects. So I can find you some examples to have a look if you want, and I can give you a bit more information maybe later on about the university work on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just to come in on that just briefly, I mean, there is other, in terms of looking at energy storage at university, there's a few other projects going on at the moment. I'll just briefly summarise those. So there's a project called EV Velocity, which is looking at vehicle to grid. So looking at EVs being a part of the energy storage network. So there's a project using the campus environment, because there are different vehicle fleets with different movement patterns. There's estates, there's security with there 24/7, there's catering, things like the different bits, and they're using that as a sort of a modelling exercise to understand how that could work. And the City Council in Nottingham have also got a big project where they've got one of those. They're part of this project as well, but they've got a big battery where they're charging up with their vehicles at the end of like 4 o'clock in the day. At the end of the day, any excess power goes into that, and then they recycle it. So that's happening locally. We've got some work on compressed air energy storage. There's a sort of spin out for the university, Cheesecake Energy. I think they're on the line somewhere. And there's also work on battery chemistry, in terms of not just lithium ion, but what are the other chemistries that could work. So there's work going on that as well. So lots of things happening, and there's other stuff on thermal energy storage, and we could be here for a while going on that. But I can see that Gordon has got his hand up, so you can. Should be able to unmute yourself, I think.
Hi, it's
sorry, you waited a while. Yeah.
Just a couple of questions. One very simple. I represent the Village Voice, a magazine that goes round the 4 villages of in Bottisford Parish. Obviously, I'm keen to promote this and publish in the next edition. Just can you tell me how can local businesses and organisations get involved? A lot of small ones and 1 or 2 medium sized, but what's the best way of people getting involved?
Just drop us a line. You know, we're happy to set up a call, no problem at all. In normal times, you know, particularly if there's more than one person from a location, we can arrange a meeting on site as well. Sometimes it's really useful to come and have a look at something. And you know, we can work with anyone from a sole trader up to a large SME of 250 people. So they don't have to be a limited company. It could be a trading social enterprise as well. So as long as there's some kind of trading activity going on.
Okay. So it's commercial and not commercial.
Yeah, there are a few sector exclusions: primary agricultural production, schools.
Because they're excluded, Tim, are they?
Yeah. The reason most of these are excluded is because there's another fund that covers those anyway. That's why. It's not because they're excluded for any other particular reason. If there was no other fund, they'd be in. But you know, there are some things like doctor's surgery. There are a few other ones where people get sort of social welfare funding and stuff like that. So yeah, but if in doubt, contact us and we can try through.
So there's no real qualifying to that, as you say, because it was whether you're a sole trader through to a larger or medium-sized corporate that will have in the area, but they again, as long as they're not part of the excluded categories. Yeah,
and we just bounce your ideas off us, and we'll see what we think's a route forward.
Okay, and very quickly, and it was perhaps directed towards Gulkings. I'm just picking up Ian's comments about the intelligent energy of hydrogen, without making it too complicated. In my understanding of this, and it may be fairly basic, the output is water, which seems a perfect to me energy and source, but there's got to be some input into that which sort of offsets those what appears to be lovely benefits. Now, have I understood that right? Or because it sounds perfect, but there's got to be cost to that somehow.
I think the challenge is with the fuel cell for highly efficient fuel cells. Fuel cell is made of electrodes and a membrane. So there are 2 electrodes, positive, negative, and there is a membrane. And often some noble materials used as a catalyst, as a material to build the fuel cell. So that is a bit of a challenge with the fuel cell. That makes it expensive. But other than that, what's going in fuel cell is just hydrogen and oxygen. And then it's just water coming out. There is no emissions, other emissions. So it is perfect. And then you can use that water to generate hydrogen and oxygen again. It's like you're getting a sustainable circle. So it is the ultimate way to get carbon-free and sustainable way of generating energy and using energy. But of course, there are still some challenges, but it's going to be definitely part of future energy in the UK and everywhere else. I don't know whether you had a chance to follow some of the news on hydrogen developments. Governments will be heavily investing in hydrogen projects. There are a lot going on at the moment, so which is great. But it is kind of perfect. It's just at the moment it's still expensive. Maybe there are still some research challenges that we're working on to make not only make it low cost but also more durable as well. Because some of the materials, their durability is still can be improved. So it's very exciting. This is my expertise. I did my PhD in hydrogen, and I always believe in it.
Sounds great. Gulken, Tim, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Herbert, you've still got your hand up. Is that because you left it up, or you want another question?
No, I didn't have a question. I don't know why
Okay.
that's there. But you have got another person asking a question.
Have we got someone else? I can't. Ooh, I think we just had Gordon. Anyone else on the text? I just put an email address on there, which is our contact email, which we'll send now anyway with all the stuff at the end. But yeah, has anyone else got anything they'd like to ask? Very happy to run through any the detail of anything that we've covered briefly earlier on in the presentation about the different routes available and stuff like that. Well, if no one else has any other questions, oh, sorry, Ian's appeared. You want to unmute yourself?
Nobody else is asking any question. I'll come back in.
Yeah. Sure.
When we originally spoke to you about this underground water source, untapped water source,
Yes.
About 600 meters, was it, below the surface? And we was thinking about, I think we was overthinking then as a group that, how, in fact, just tell Herbert, you want to come in on this one and just tell people about the water source?
Well, what it is was that when they were looking to mine coal in the village, and I think it was the 1960s, they drilled all over the place, and basically it was an embarrassment of water they found because it would have flooded the workings of the pit, and so it was seen as negative at that time. But there is detail of the temperatures of the water, the depth and the soil types, which we've spoken to the British Geological Survey about. And as Ian says, the deeper you go, the warmer the temperature, and of course the more expensive it is to access it, to make use of it. And that's where we are with that. I think it's probably going to be something that needs a consultation on to see if it's worth following up or not.
I was thinking on this one, Herbert, we've got Pev Manners from Beaver Fruit Farms on board with us, who seems to be very interested in the project. And he he's the managing director of Beaver Fruit Farms, which is right adjacent where the trial hole was drilled. And if we look at it as a local source for using that sort of energy, I think that company would be one to be, because I know is very interested in possibly becoming a zero net carbon footprint place, and he'd be the person, I think, who could benefit from it as well. So, whereas we thought of the whole village and we thought, no, that's just impossible at the end of it. With just looking at one person taking some energy from the ground source heat pump, that would perhaps be worth looking at again. It's a shame he couldn't be. He was going to come to the meeting today with us, wasn't he? But he finished it with two other.
Yeah, he couldn't make it, but he's very committed to the sort of thing we're trying to do. And as I think we can probably all learn from this is we're very much in the early stages, and we need people to buy in and have their six penneth so that we can work something out that's right for us as in this village, which would be brilliant.
Mm. Yeah, so just that, that one I thought we'd perhaps left it dead and buried, but I think with a company on board who's local to where we know the water is and accessible, we could perhaps be looking at, even if it's a different way of drawing it from the surface. I don't know, but I thought that was dead and buried. But I think with having Pev Manners on board with us, perhaps I don't think we should bury it just yet, not till we really can sort of say, no, that's a no-go.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I think there's certainly feasibility money out there for, if you were constituted as a community group or of some kind of community social enterprise, there's certainly feasibility funding out there that's to look at those sort of projects. So
the other thing, I think it goes back to calculation. We're aiming to get budgeted, zero net carbon footprint. I say, I think somebody mentioned how do you calculate it, which was Dave, wasn't it? So I think that is something we need to get on board as well. Whether we look at it from get the different calculators for domestic premises, commercial premises, and how many trees for how many houses. I was I know there's another John Rose on the airfield at Normanton. He's planted absolutely loads of trees over the years, just off his own back. So you find out what he's done on the it's the disused airfield, that is, Tim, very close. And I know there's been so much planting gone on there over the years, and there's lots of roof spaces for solar panels as well. So we need to see if we can get those to sort of come on board with us.
Yeah.
I'll shut up because I don't give anybody else a chance. Sorry. Thanks.
Right. Is anyone else with a question? Oh, Bob. We'll see Bob. Bob's got his hand up. Want to unmute and camera on. Here we are.
There somewhere, yeah.
Yep.
Just really about calculating carbon for a village like Bottisford. Obviously, there's the right tool, but having looked at Ashton Hayes and gone through their website and how they did it, they were only 1,000 people in the village, and I think they went round and interviewed 40% of all households. It'd be interesting. I'd like to know the feasibility of what kind of percentage of households, businesses we'd need to do within a village the size of Bottisford, Muston, and the rest, to actually make it a reasonable calculation, and whether in fact that therefore would be practical. I mean, if somebody said, well, we've got to go around 70% of them, then I think that would be an absolute task and a half. But what's the feeling now within the academic world of what percentage we would have to, and this is probably something you can't answer now, but I think it's a question we need to get to, of what percentage we would need to get to find out where our baseline is.
Yeah, okay. I guess, yeah, I mean, we do have some people who do sort of modelling of, models for large scale stock kind of modelling of housing and things like that. So obviously you'd want to get a handle on the energy usage of each kind of house type, or, obviously there's going to be a mixture because you've got different different development periods, haven't you? You've got the really old stock and then some more modern waves and stuff like that. Yeah, you'd want a cross section of that, and then obviously you can kind of use the data that's out there about the range of energy usage that any particular type of house would have, because you're going to get quite lifestyle and occupancy differences around any particular property type. So you could do something. I don't know what percentage you'd need. That's the only question. I mean, 40% does sound quite good, to be honest.
Yes. I mean, but 40% around 1,000 people, maybe 600 homes or whatever, is not so difficult to do. But when you've got something like Bottisford, which is quite diverse as well, I believe, that it could be more difficult. And just secondly, what's the latest theory on tree planting? Obviously, there's a benefit and there's a gain to be made in respect of planting trees against carbon offset. When Ashton Hayes, and again, I revert back to them because they've gone a long way with all this, they started talking about 8 trees per person. And it's a bit broad, but then they mentioned that had all changed and there was no new thinking on that. Do you know what that thinking is? And, we've got to figure all these things in as to what's feasible, what's more practical. If it's 800 trees per person, then you'd put a line through it, wouldn't you? You know what I mean? And there are, we have in fact talked in our meetings to a farmer about, talking to other farmers about planting trees. I don't think they're that up for it, but you never know.
Yeah, I guess
I would like to know what kind of benefit it really gives in practical terms.
Yeah, I don't have a figure in the top of my head about it, but obviously, getting the right tree in the right place is important, things like that.
You've frozen on mine.
Yeah, Tim is frozen. Hopefully he'll be
You think it's the question that's frozen him, or just?
It happens from time to time, but he usually comes back on quite quickly.
Ladies and gentlemen, just while we're waiting, can I just say thank you? I'm just going to have to dodge out to organise daughter's homeschooling flute lesson, which is about to start in 2 minutes. But just to say thank you to everybody. It's really interesting, and look forward to the future developments. But thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Gordon.
Okay.
Michelle, oh, there he is. He's back. You're back. I think you're on mute as well, Tim. You can unmute yourself. We lost you. There you go.
Yeah, it dropped. Yeah. Is there any more questions? This is the. I think everyone who's put their hand up has asked a question. So yeah. Thinking we're nearly at the end, so unless anyone else has got anything else they'd like to ask, I think we'll kind of draw to a close. Just thanks very much for attending. I'll pop the email address in the chat, and we'll send round all the slides and stuff, so people have got all the contact details. And you can get in contact us whenever you fancy, and we'll arrange a meeting, work out what the next steps are. Okay. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, Herbert, as well. Thank you for
Tim, all of you guys very much.
Yeah, great. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, Sue. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Have a nice day.